Welcome back, everybody, to another tank walkthrough of a Shadowlands dungeon. This one's going to be on Spires of Ascension. It's been a little bit since my last one. I've been caught up in IRL going back to the office. We got sent back recently, and also I've been sick, so my voice is still a little bit out of the loop, but bear with me for this one. And here we go. So first things first, the first wing of trash is on this platform where you start the dungeon on. These mobs are actually pretty dangerous. The vanguards, can't see them clearly yet, but there's two vanguards here and a mender. This guy's the healer. He has the buff above his head. This guy has another buff, but it's because of the inspired ethics. So what he does is he prevents anything about in this range around him from being CCable or kickable or anything. So you have to either hard CC him or just deal with all the casts from the other mobs nearby. And this is much like the Tides affix from season 3 of BFA. Anyway, these three mobs aren't too bad, but combined with other mobs, they can be pretty scary. You'll see we decide to CC that guy. Right off the bat, there's a couple things I need to talk about. A marker went down on the ground because the Mender here has this buff above her head. Has 5 stacks, 7 seconds left. That is the weapon she's carrying, and if you have a mage in your group, just goop him over here, or anyone else that can purge that buff off of her, it removes the buff and it puts her weapon on the ground. And so someone's going to mark it, and usually you as a tank want to pick this up. The only reason I didn't pick it up here is because I had Jadewind running. You can see on my UI right there. And I would have broken the CC that I put on this Vanguard. So I let someone else pick it up this time, but I'll talk more about that later. You can see the weapon right there. So we're pulling into more mobs. Again, there's another Vanguard. This is just a guy that does a short frontal cleave on the tank. That's really all they do. So just try to aim them away from the group. It doesn't seem like you can sidestep the frontal cleaves. It's a follow the tank style frontal cleave. And then the other important mobs are these two Castigators. These will be really difficult on higher level keys. They spam cast Dark Lash on the group. There's one casting it right now. And they do heavy chunks of damage, like you'll see. That one hit me, that one hit me. And they're all targeting me. You'll see group members get chunked. There's Cry getting owned. And lastly, I want to talk about the Forsworn Goliath. This guy has a cast called Rebellious Fist. It does massive AoE damage to the group. If you let that go, your group might get one shot on a fortified key. And the annoying part about this mob is that you need 2 kicks for it. It's on like a 12 to 15 second cooldown, so it's tempting to only put one person on it. But because most of the time, it's on a 12-second cooldown, you need 2. So I would either do like a melee and then a ranged kick and then that same melee kick for high-level keys, or you can just assign 2 melee player kicks to it. That is all the trash mobs on this first platform. We did a big pull here. I would not advise doing this the first time you do this instance. Definitely just pull like the first 3 mobs by themselves, then the next 3 with this Goliath, and then the last 3 that we pull after this. Because it's the inspired affix, you'll see that we pulled that late so that we could take care of the important casts. And here's the last 3 mobs, more of the same mobs. There is a Mender, so you'll see her get a weapon buff here in a second, and then imbue weapon, there it is. So it popped up. It's like a short cast on the mob, and then as soon as she gets it, she'll start swinging her weapon for like high magic damage. So you want it to be purged as soon as possible. So she does remove 1 stack by hitting me, but then my mage purges it and I run over and pick it up. And now I cleave everything for like 2k. I think you only get to attack once with it. Like, it's kind of OP. The mobs that have the buff get to attack 5 times with it, but you only get to attack once. It does do a lot of damage and gives you a lot of threat though. You can see the Dark Lash is just almost killing people. I think someone did die to Dark Lash at some point there, even on a 15 Tyrannical. Fortified, that first area will be very scary until further tuning. You can see here we take these angel fairies across to the next platform. This is common throughout this dungeon, and not only this dungeon, but in Shadowlands in general. There's a lot of like portals or fairies that you have to take just to the next area. So this is the first pack on the second platform. This guy's inspired, so we're going to CC him. There's a lot of important kicks, and that's a common theme throughout Spires of Ascension as well, is every pack just has tons of casts that you want to stop. I think this is going to be one of the more in-depth guides I do because of that. But we're going to CC this Mender. That's the same mob that casts Imbue Weapon and also does a heal. By the way, only one person needs to be assigned to kick the Mender for the heal cast. It's on a 15-second cooldown or higher, I think. So we CC him, and even if he wasn't inspired, I would still pull in this direction. I would pull over to this Castigator mob. Castigators are the casters. They don't move very well. So you want to just bring, and this is a good rule of thumb, but you want to bring all mobs to the caster mob in the pull as a tank, because they are the hardest to move. I have a great camera angle here, right in a tree, but these are the same mobs as before. Rebellious Fist. That was my kick. Looks like I took the important one just in case. So just to recap, in these pulls you need to assign 2 people to the Goliath, Forsworn Goliath, the big robot guy. You need to assign 1 person to the Mender if it's not CC'd for the heal. And then everybody else needs to kick the Castigator. And that only leaves like 1 person to kick the Castigator, unfortunately, which spams Dark Lash. And you just want to only kick Dark Lash on the Castigator. Burden of Knowledge is also a cast it does, but I believe it's a dispellable dot. I could be wrong on that, but I think it's a dispellable dot for like 6 seconds. You'll notice that it's the Prideful affix, and so what we're doing here is making efficient use of the Inspired affix as well. The Prideful being in the Inspired aura doesn't really affect it at all. It's already immune to CC, so you might as well group these up as best you can in dungeons. If you caught it there, the Mender casted Forsworn Doctrine and we kicked it. That's the heal. I think even if Forsworn Doctrine channels for a second, it doesn't heal right away, so you do have some leeway of kicking a little late and preventing healing. Alright, so that wraps up the first trash wing, and then we're pulling the first boss, Kintara here. Sorry, it's a little blurry. This VOD turned out a little bit blurry for some reason. But Kintara is a 2-target boss fight. The bird on the left there moves wherever it wants throughout the fight, so you kind of, as a tank, just follow the bird. Put Kintara on the bird at all times. There's 2 frontal cleaves. This bird is about to shoot shit like straight out in front of it in 3 lines like that. And sometimes it'll turn and like do 3 lines this way, or like 3 lines this way after that. I just drew whiskers. And then Kintara also has a frontal cleave, something like that long on the map. So you gotta position her in a way that you won't get hit by the bird cones, but you also leave some space for melee over here. It's kind of hard, but just watch the bird mostly. There's the boss frontal. Her frontal actually hurts really bad. Sometimes she turns away and just misses me completely, and I'm not sure if that's because her model's too big, which can definitely be the case in our wonderful World of Warcraft mechanical game. I don't really know if it's dodgeable. I bet you can outrange it if you roll away or leap away at the last second, but it's not too dangerous yet for me to have to do that. She has an intermission here where she targets someone and throws a spear. It targeted me there, so I ran out of the group. Looks like my default text here just showed me that I had the spear pretty clearly, and also there's an arrow above my head, so just watch for that and move out. Yeah, this boss actually hurts a lot. The intermission is nice. You can pool up your resources as a tank, and then try to have a defensive for every frontal cleave. I don't have boss timers yet. I don't know exactly when she does frontal cleaves, but when I do, I'll probably I'll pop like Dampen for one. I'll Celestial Brew another. I'll pop a Trinket for a 3rd one. I'll just use all my defensives before the intermission. You can see she nearly kills me here just by her auto attacks. She's very overpowered right now. This is a Tyrannical boss, to be fair, but still it's scary. So use all your defensives on this boss. And also, it should be noted that these 2 targets now share health, so you greatly get value out of stacking the bosses whenever you can. Alright, so that's the first boss. This next area has 6 invisible cats. There's like one here, 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 and they patrol around a little bit, so like just this general area is the 3 here, and then there's 3 cats right here-ish. So usually as a monk player, I'll roll in and spin before they can hit me. If you hit them first, they will not stun you, but if they hit you first, they will stun you. So I spin to make sure I get the first hit on them. My Frost Mage broke the other 3 for me, against my will. And then a group member is tagging the 7th mob, and this is a new mob in this wing as well, the Praetor, the Dark Praetor. He's a very, very annoying mob up there. You'll see why in a second. So I'm grouping up these cats. I got a bunch of bleeds from them. Those bleeds hurt a lot. And then as soon as I get to the Praetor, he dashes like 20 yards away. And this is so annoying as a tank because you basically are limited to going wherever the Praetor goes. You don't really have any choice if you're pulling one. And also, they queue up their movement ability to do it as soon as the tank gets to them. So like, as soon as he moves, go over to him right away so that you can have time before he queues it up again. And when you're out of range of him, he spams that Darkseeker. So you'll see him start to spam it here. Darkseeker on Trell. One. Here's another. Looks like it does magic damage. It goes straight through my stagger. Pretty nasty mob. I think that's the worst part of this next section of trash, where you get the majority of your count as well. I mean, this pull alone is pretty good. Like, that's the only bad mob in that pull. There's 6 mobs for free because you can kite the cats if you have a slow. Otherwise, they're pretty hard because of the bleed, but it's a decent pull. You'll see me just, like, attempt to wrangle these Dark Praetors. So here's another Dark Praetor. This pack had an invisible cat in it. You kind of break, you passively break that cat out of stealth. You don't need to know that, per se. But just watch my positioning with the Dark Praetor. And there's one other new mob here called the Ether Diver. I don't know why it's called that. It's a bird. But he does this frontal cone. Like the bird, some of the Ether Divers have this mechanic where they do this frontal thing. I think it's called Maw Touched Venom. You'll see that from time to time. But it seems like not every one of them does it. Only some Ether Divers. The other things they do is they apply a nasty magic debuff to you as a tank. It takes really hard. Make sure your healer knows to dispel that pretty quickly once they see it on you. And I think they also give you a non-dispellable AoE burst around your character, so it hurts melee people around you as well as you. Those birds are pretty nasty. This pack, you might be scared of this pack when you go in because these big guys look like the first Goliath that you fought at the start. But they're actually different mobs entirely. These guys really aren't too bad. All of their damage is dodgeable. The annoying part of this pack, though, is that these two stand still pretty much the whole time, and this Dark Praetor goes wherever the hell he wants. You'll see them start to channel their AoE damage, which you can dodge. Good game design there. We always like dodgeball mechanics. The Dark Praetor is just doing random shit. Also of note, for Season 1, you're likely going to proc the Pride here, the 40% Pride, so tell your group to DPS these two Annihilators down evenly. We're at 37%. Basically, as soon as one Annihilator dies, we're going to proc it. You'll see me, like, remember that the Praetor's out there eventually, just spamming Darkseeker on me. Man, I hope they change those mobs. They're really annoying. We proc the Pride. Not too bad to finish up these mobs while we're fighting the Pride. As long as... I think I do get hit by the swirly because I had to hold still. That was awkward timing. But I survived. It's all good. And we're fighting Pride. For those that are just watching videos for the first time on Shadowlands, Prideful gives you a huge buff when it dies. 30% damage, 30% more healing, 60% movement speed, and infinite mana for your healer for a full minute. This pack has 3 of those birds and a Dark Praetor. I mean, I think a Dark Praetor is in every single pack, man. I'm just realizing this. I'm not happy about it. These Ether Divers, though, like I mentioned before, like, only one of these has that frontal cleave for some reason. It seems like random birds have it and some don't. So just do your best to dodge them. They have a very short cast time called Maw Touched Venom, if you can catch it on the screen here. There it is, right there. Only one of them did it. But we clean up this pull just fine. This is tyrannical again, so the trash isn't living too long. This is the Covenant-specific buff for this dungeon. It's called the Spear of Destiny. You can see that I have the buff on my UI up here, and I'm going to hold it for a little bit because I have a specific pack I want to use it on. But I picked it up from that Dead Angel. I think there's 3 spears in the dungeon. I'll pick up 2 in this run. I'm not sure where the third one is off the top of my head. But I'm sure there'll be resources out there by the time Mythic Plus comes out. people to start planning on this. So I'm not going to use the spear on this pack. This pack is pretty easy, pretty straightforward. There's a Forsworn Champion, that's a new mob. He has the same kind of imbue weapon cast as the Mender. You can see it like pulling out of his backpack there. He's going to equip his weapon and start to beat my ass with it, but luckily our mage knows to dispel that one too. And it's the same kind of mechanic, so as soon as he gets it, it's going to get dispelled. I'm going to run over to the weapon, strafe over it to pick it up. My buddy even marked it for me just to make sure I could see it. It's hard to see, honestly. And I kill the mobs with it. Alright, so I'm going to use the spear on this pull. And I think this is a really good pull to use it on because not only are there 5 of those birds that do nasty debuff damage and a bunch of frontal cleaves, but there's also a big guy that takes a long time to burn. And 2 other mobs that I can't remember until we pull it. There's also a Dark Praetor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay down the spear. Almost on pull, I do like 2 globals to get threat real quick and to min-max the use of the spear. I don't do it right away, but like 2 globals in right before the Dark Praetor dashes away and right before all the birds start to cast nasty stuff on the group. So what the spear does is it stuns everything for 10 seconds and makes it take 20% increased damage. And it stuns everything, including inspired mobs, mini-bosses that can't be stunned normally, and like any mob known to man. I don't know if it stuns bosses, I don't think so, and it probably shouldn't. But any mini-boss or inspired mob or any other trash mob in the game, it'll stun, which is really cool. So here goes the spear. Everything is stunned for 10 seconds. You don't need to use any defensives, you just go all out damage, try to burn everything. I love this, by the way. I think it's really cool. Everything casts as soon as it's over. You can see the 2 frontals go out. Even though there were 5 birds, only 2 frontals happened. But we cleaned up the birds, which was the goal. So the rest of this pull is kind of normal. You can see that the Forsworn Inquisitor is actually a different mob than the Castigator at the start, but it casts the same stuff. It's still doing Dark Lash. I believe it casts Burden of Knowledge, just like the Castigators. This Annihilator you've seen before already. It's just the dodge AoE on the ground mob, and then the Dark Praetor is the really annoying mob that I hate. It should also be mentioned that that pull lined up pretty well, but those 2 packs are both really long patrols that don't always line up like that, so you may have to wait for a good time to pull them in some situations. You can see on the minimap this platform in particular is like this long E-shaped platform. I think both patrols almost go across the entire platform, but at different speeds because the birds are very fast. We're killing the 60% Pride, no problem. Pride is now capping at 20 stacks, by the way, not 30. Which I think is a good change. It'll help key scaling a little bit. This is a new mob. There's a Dark Praetor in here, every single pack, I swear. There's a Dark Praetor, so he's going to dash away, that's fine. But the new mob is the Forsworn Squad Leader. The Squad Leader has an aura that reduces their allies' damage taken by 75%. So you have to just single target down the Squad Leader. I don't think that's a good thing for the game, by the way. Like, having to CC an entire pull just to kill one mob first and then pull the other mobs is not really too much fun for me, at least. This pack's fine, there's only one other mob with it, but you'll see on the next one what I mean. Forsworn Squad Leader. It also should be noted that the Squad Leaders have a frontal cleave. I think it's just a straight line in front of them. It's like a really skinny straight line. Reaches a long ways, but it's very skinny. Yeah, so this is a nasty pack right before the second boss. We've got the Dark Praetor in the air. So not only is it already an annoying mob, but it's also in the air, so you just can't melee it on pull. I'm going to paralyze that because there's a Squad Leader preventing everything else from taking damage pretty much, and we need to single target down here first. Luckily there's no inspired mob in this pack. That'd be really awkward because you want to CC this. The Dark Praetor is mechanical, so only Paralyze and Trap, I think, work on it. There's an Ether Diver here, watch for that frontal. There's a Forsworn Champion that just casted its weapon. Forsworn Doctrine is the heal that we just kicked. Here's the Crashing Crashing Strike Frontal Cleave from the squad leader there. Alright, so we finished the squad leader. I used Touch of Death to finish it because I hate that mob. And then I break the CCs. The Dark Praetor does come down, luckily, and I pull the mobs over to the Praetor because it never moves. Oh, you can see my character bursting here. Let me back up a little bit. You're going to see like a little gray-white explosion around my character, like something like this wide. But it ticks people around me in that radius, and it's that debuff that's about to fall off, and it comes from the bird that is now dead, the Ether Diver bird. That's the debuff I was talking about, but you'll see me like pulse right there, and that does pretty good damage. I don't think that one's dispellable because the bird also casts another thing that's dispellable. And just watch out for that. Let your melee know about that. So yeah, this is probably the hardest trash pull in the instance. This one and the next one. There's just a lot going on. Don't be afraid of CCing, especially the first time you do it. Even worse CCing on a Tyrannical 15 because there's just no point in pulling it all when everything takes 75% reduced damage. This is the second boss. My hunter here is actually resetting the boss because he patrols around this entire area, and we want to get 80% count before we pull him. We're at 75% right now, so we're gonna go pull that pack over there. Once you reset the boss once, he then stays over here on that location for the rest of eternity. That's the reasoning for that. We're gonna go do the same kind of pull here. I'm gonna CC the Praetor again since there's a squad leader. I think we CC the bird as well or something. Okay, we CC the healer. There's also a cat walking in, invisible there. Worthy of note. And this is the same kind of pull as before. It should be noted as well that I went the right path in this dungeon instead of the left path. There's different platforms you can choose after the first boss. I think the right path is a little bit easier, especially if you don't know the dungeon yet. The left path has some crazy mobs, like the skirmisher mobs. I think we fight one later, are very nasty, and they're on the left side. I also skip a lot of trash at the end of the dungeon. I'll try to talk about that a little bit, but I don't know as much about that trash as the trash I normally pull. But luckily, we kill off the last Dark Praetor of the instance here. Happy tank. Find the 80% pride, and then we'll go right into the second boss with it. It's kind of like Motherload, where you get 80% count by the second boss, and then you just do 3 bosses, basically. I do like this dungeon, though, overall. Aside from there being so many important casts to worry about, and some hard-to-move mobs, I think it's a really cool themed dungeon. It looks beautiful. It looks just like Halls of Valor from Legion, if anybody played that. That was another aesthetically awesome dungeon. This boss is pretty easy for tanks. I actually screw up there and get hit by the mechanic. But you basically want to pull him to the edges, aim his frontal cleave outside there, dodge the cleave, like I did, and then just keep rotating him so that people have ample space to dodge these swirlies coming out of this guy here. They send like projectiles a straight direction at random outside of the pool. And so you want to just like create space between the party and the things on the ground. So you'll see me move the boss like 20 yards away each time. As soon as they cast Dark Stride, they go bleed someone in the group and they drop a pool. So about like this, you can aim your camera, always dodge the direction so that you can see where the projectiles are coming from like that. And then during this recharge phase, it shoots a bunch of projectiles at once. There may be a way to game this, where you can make the recharge phase like have safe spots if you place the Dark Stride in certain spots. I am not 100% sure yet, but I think there might be. You can see we take this down pretty easily with the Prideful buff. It's not an easy boss though. Our healer did die because the orbs in the ground basically one-shot at this level already. Hopefully that gets tuned down a little bit. But the other mechanic that you can't see on my UI, but will be there eventually, is the boss is putting bleeds on people. If you're a prop pally, you can bop that bleed off. If your party members are Kyrian, they can use the file to get rid of the bleed. Dwarves can use Stone Form. Dark Iron Dwarves can use Fire Blood. anything that you can usually remove bleeds works there. That's the second boss. That boss isn't too hard for tanks. I think really all the bosses are pretty easy for tanks except for the first one, just has a lot of unavoidable physical damage. We're taking the slow angel fairies over to the final, or second to last platform rather. This area has the worst trash in the instance, and you'll see us skip almost all of it. Excuse me, my voice. I'm picking up the second spear of our run here. That's from that angel there. That again is the Kyrian Covenant buff for this dungeon. It lasts through death. If you die with the spear, you still retain it. And I think it's just infinite until you use it in the key somewhere. So we skip all that trash. A lot of this stuff just does high damage. I don't know the names of the casts yet by heart, and unfortunately I didn't pull them in this run. But there is this pack you may want to do the first time you do this, especially on M0, so that you have a respawn point. We're going to skip it because we pull some other stuff for our account. But I'll show you how we skip it at least. So you don't even need stealth here. If you have a class that can CC and get aggro of that mob there, like a hunter. We have a hunter walking up. He's going to trap the mob, he's going to stay in camouflage, and he's going to get threat of the mob. And the way trap and paralyze and some CCs work is they put the first person who comes near them in combat, and then everybody else can pass without combat like we were doing here. Now that we're all past, our hunter will feign death. And then instead of shrouding there, we use our shroud here. We pull some of these usurpers. There's two sides of these. There's like 7 usurpers here. There's 1 here, 2 here, 3 here, and then 4 off the screen to the left. And then there's like 7 usurpers on this side as well. So you can get free count by doing what we're doing here. They die really quickly. If you just tag 1 and then line of sight everything to this pillar, you can see how spread out they are. You definitely want to do this. They don't really do much if they're in melee range. You can see them try to hurl on people when they were still at range. That does a lot of damage, but their melees don't do much damage at all. So once you get them in melee, they're fine. We're going to do the same thing on this side. The other packs that are around the usurpers do a lot of damage. Those are also very difficult packs. I would advise skipping those packs for now until they either get tuned down or people know more about them, how to counter them in a better way. You'll see I'm not using my spear on these pulls. I'm saving my spear for something special. This is the third boss, Mr. Oryphrion. He has a tank stomp, AoE stomp, so make sure you're a good distance away from other players. Don't be like right in the middle of the boss's hitbox because of the stomp. And he also has this soak mechanic, Imperial Ordnance. So for tanks, I want to get over there and stack with my ranged right now. I'm a little bit late on this one, but that's okay, so I can show you why I would want to do that. So I'm a little bit late, I missed my pool a little bit, but I wanted to put it directly on them to stack it. And then I wanted to move the boss over here so there's a straight line to the pools. He's casting Purifying Blast on a random player. I can target anybody but the tank, I believe. And then he should do a tank stomp. Oh, he does another Purifying Blast, that's fine. And then charge stomp on me. Looks like it leaves a magic debuff. Okay, so here's the second Imperial Ordnance. We're pretty much stacked up in a straight line. I think ideally you actually want like one set of pools right here, one set of pools hard stacked right here, like that's the second set of pools, and then the boss is right here, so there's just a completely straight line of the pools to the boss, because the pools will turn into orbs that you need to soak in the next phase of the boss. So the boss is running out of energy. That's when he enters his phase 2, or his intermission rather. One more stomp on me. Okay, and then he does his intermission. So he like shuts down, he's recharging his anima. During this phase, he takes double damage. So you want people to hold CDs, and the boss will just melt if they do. And someone needs to soak these orbs. So what I did in this run is I soaked for a little bit so that I could still damage. And then I'm having the rogue use his Cloak of Shadows for the rest to immune it. Whenever you soak the orbs, they do blow up in like a 5 to 10 yard radius, something like that. So if he were to soak it where he is right here, that's probably going to cleave onto Corey. So Corey is going to get stacks from those orbs, like I have 5 stacks here. I moved way across the boss to avoid the rest. But it does a lot of damage. Be careful with that dot. Save all your defensives for this phase, by the way, as tanks, especially if you're going to soak all of them. You don't really need defensives for the rest of this fight. Prop Pally is especially good here. I think DK is as well. I'm assuming you can use AMS to soak all of them if you're quick enough. Prop Pally can do it twice with Bubble and Spell Warding. Full immune. I'm going to roll away my ordnance here to the rest of the group. But yeah, that's the main mechanic, is just soaking the balls. Setting it up for success, trying to make it into a straight line, and then having a good person to soak them while doing damage to the boss, if possible. I think it's a pretty interesting boss because you have to decide, like, say your only immunity is a mage. Do you really want to put the mage to soak those orbs during a double damage burn phase? Like, obviously you don't want that. You want the mage to be able to pop CDs and kill the boss. So it is very interesting how people are going to handle that, I think. I still have my spear. You can see my extra action button is still there at the top. And we killed the third boss. So once you kill the third boss, the checkpoint is now over here, where those 3 mobs were that we skipped. Which is why I think you should probably kill them the first time you do this dungeon. So from now on, if you die, you spawn like in that pack, if you didn't kill it. We take these 2 angels to the very top, where Devos and the Archon are fighting. Is that what she's called? I can't remember. But there's 3 mini bosses up here. It should be noted that they're worth like roughly 13% count. The 3 mini bosses are worth quite a bit. We're a little bit off count this run. So don't count this as like your optimal count. I think I was 3 count off. So you need 249 count out of 285 before you go up. Or roughly 87%. So these 3 mini bosses, you should probably pull them one at a time. When each dies, they give each other their mechanics, and they full heal any angels to full. There is a window of time when one dies that you can kill another one before it full heals. So we do pull 2 at once, but I would not advise this until you've kind of figured these things out. Because they have a mechanic called Charge Spear. And what I'm doing is I'm using my spear to stun both the mini bosses that normally wouldn't be able to be stunned. So they take 20% increased damage and they stop all mechanics for 10 seconds. Which I think is super valuable. I think that's like the best possible use for that spear so far. Charge Spear is going out. It can target melee, healers, or ranged. Anyone but the tank. Astronos throws the spear. She's the one that starts with that mechanic. Lakesys has a frontal cleave that she starts with. So you just aim that away from the group. And I'll talk about spears more in just a minute. Spears are actually outplayable. When they are placed, they face a random direction, one of 4 directions. So this spear ended up facing this direction. You can kind of see it's leaning toward there. So you know one of the 4 sides of it is that direction. So then you know the other 3 directions of where the animation, the hit will come from the spear. Like the spears blow up every once in a while and just like create a crossfire like this one's doing right now. I'll unpause it so you can see it. So you want to know where that crossfire is going to be, right? So the group's going to position in a way to where you can guarantee to be safe from the spears. And we have figured this out, at least. So what I'm doing here is I have the group. The melee is stacked directly behind the angel. The range is stacked directly behind the angel, but we're all in a straight line. That's what's important. The spear will never go on me, so my position actually doesn't matter. I could be over here, but as long as the rest of the group is in a straight line together, it's okay. The way the spears work, so a spear just went out to range there. The way the spears work is that spear will now fire in this axis for the rest of its existence. So the first axis is this one right here, And that's because that's the direct line from the angel that threw the spear to the spear's landing point. So that's how you know where the spear is going to fire off from then on. Is that line between her and the spear. So then what the group does is we all move over at the same time. And you can see, since we know it's going to fire like that, everybody else is safe. We all moved and we're all in a straight line again to bait the next spear. But we're all safe from that original spear. So try to keep your group in a straight line. It's really hard to explain to your group, especially the first time you do it, because it's like, it probably barely makes sense hearing me say it right now. But like, we baited the next spear there in melee, and you'll see we're now in safe spots once again. So because we were all in a straight line, it went to melee directly behind her, and the axis is like that. So now we moved to the right as a group, and then up. This is all like a bunch of geometry. So we moved right and up together, so we're out of the crossfire, and out of the crossfire from the original spear, which is something like this right now. So, without drawing too much, just try to remember to move as a straight line. Move diagonally if the spear went on your set, in the melee set. So like, I'm going to move diagonally here again if she was still alive. And we'd be fighting on this side. Try to use the whole platform, like plan to have space to move each time. I think in hierarchies, that's going to get really intense. Like 6 or 7 spears, maybe even more than that, on the platform before the mobs die. We should have had 100% pride here. I screwed up and missed 3 count. I think after the run, I go back down and kill the solo mob. That's like the first mob on that very last platform. But don't worry about that too much. It's just one mob I missed. This is Devos, the last boss. She has 2 Santa hats on for flavor. Not sure why. Devos is, again, not too bad for tanks. Really, all this is just positioning. She casts that frontal at anyone in the group, so you just see where she's facing and move out of her path. And then you move to this shield, because she has a bomb here that you can see exploding on the ground. That circle is expanding, and as soon as it hits the edge of its circle there, you know it's going to blow up. So you need to be in this large Kyrian circle-looking shield before that bomb blows up. The shield does not prevent her from taking any damage, so if I wanted to, I could tank her right here in the middle. The only thing the shield does is puts a damage reduction against the bomb. I have a circle dot there. It just does some magic damage. It's okay. Use CDs against that, honestly. Her melees don't do much right now. There's another bomb out. I move her into the circle before I get one shot. This boss phases at 66% and 33%. She's nearing her intermission. Oh, it's 70 and 40, never mind. Maybe it's time-based. That was like 72%. Maybe I'm just completely wrong about that. But anyway, this is the intermission, so I'm going to put my spear down here, right on the middle. The objective here is to get the orbs on the side of the room back to the center as fast as you can. Once you get all the orbs from the sides to the center, you can then throw the spear that spawns right here and bring her down from the sky. So do this as fast as you can. Have your mobile classes get the far ones. Like, I just get the farthest one because I can transcend. I think my mage alters time to get back. My rogue shadow steps. There's lots of ways you can do it. We already got all the orbs. My mage threw the spear. She's coming back down. I'm just off healing in the meantime. Yeah, this boss isn't too bad. Just move her into the circle, and that's about it. Dodge, run through, move her into the circle. In the intermission, I should have also mentioned that each time you move through one of the spheres on the ground, one of the bad spheres, you get a stack of debuff that ticks on you. You can see here that I have the dispellable mechanic again. That goes out on 2 people, so my healer left it on the tank, which is a good thing. Tank can usually survive stuff like that the best. It's just like Rixa from Motherload. There's a lot of bosses like that this expansion. A lot of 2 magic debuff at a time type of bosses. She just cast Lost Confidence again. That was the bomb on the ground, I think. Oh no, that's the debuff. Lost confidence is the double debuff that goes out. Man, I thought I knew this dungeon. Alright. And she should do her second intermission here. It looks like maybe she forces it at 30% or something. I don't know why the other one happened at 72. Maybe it's variable. Maybe it's time. Once again, just get these far orbs. Get them to the middle as fast as you can. Try to dodge the circles on the ground. They give this stacking seed looking debuff. Like, looks like our rogue got 2 stacks there. Everyone else is at 1 stack. It's not too bad. Like, you can take a couple stacks and it should be okay. Doesn't tick too hard. But this is the last phase on Devos, and then we're done with the dungeon. It should also be noted, by the way, once you finish Devos, this slow fall thing appears at the edge of the platform that you can use to get back down, but it's really wonky. Like, if you take the slow fall and just jump, you'll slow fall for like a year before you reach anywhere because it's so high up in the air. I hope they change that to just put a ferry to bring you back down to the third boss, because there's no real safe way to get down. Like, I don't even take that angel here to go down there because I would just die. I would end up like, last time I did it, I ended up like somewhere way over there off in the middle of nowhere and eventually just died. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. I will keep them coming as best I can. Hopefully I'll be feeling better and can put up a other side guide next. Let me know what you liked about this video in the comments, and I'll see you next time.